We have now covered for and while loops, and I now want to introduce the concept of a nested loop. And this is nothing to worry about. In fact, it's very simple. All a nested loop is including another for or while loop inside the code body of a for or while loop. So as long as you understand how a for or a while loop operates, understanding nested loops is very simple. So let's cover some examples. So let's start by creating a for loop, and we'll put for a in, and then I'm going to start a list, which is what we're going to iterate over. I will then put I play with a space at the end. I'll then have I watch with a space, and then I'll have I enjoy. I can then put a colon. Now when I press return at this point, you can see we get our indentation, and we're now about to write the code body. In other words, what will be executed on each iteration through this list. So I could put print A and we'll simply get I play, I watch, I enjoy. But inside this code body, I'm just going to utilize another for loop. So I'm going to put for B, which will be our variable in this loop, and then I'm going to put in. I can then open square brackets, and inside this list, I'm going to put golf, tennis, and badminton. I can then put a colon. When I now press return, we get another indentation for this loop, so we can now write the code body. So let's say we wanted the sentences to read, I play golf, I play tennis, I play badminton, and then I watch golf, I watch tennis, I watch badminton, and so on. I can simply print, and then in brackets, we can put A plus B. When we run this code, notice that we get I play golf, I play tennis, I play badminton. And then it goes to I watch. So what's happening here? Well, in our first for loop, we store I play in the variable A. We then go into our nested for loop. So B originally stores golf. And you can see we then print out whatever is stored in A, so I play, plus whatever is stored in B. So we get I play golf. Now the inner loop is then iterated over again. So we then take whatever is stored in A, which is still I play, B now becomes tennis, and we print out I play tennis. And then finally, A still holds the string I play, and then we iterate over our nested loop, so B then stores badminton, and we print out I play badminton. Now when the nested loop has been iterated over in its entirety, we then go back up to the outer loop, which is our first loop, and A then stores I watch. We then go into our nested loop, and the pattern continues. So then we print I watch golf. It then iterates over to tennis, so we print I watch tennis, and so on. So let's say we wanted to make this even more clear. After this code block, if I press return, and then I go back one indentation, after our nested loop has completed, let's print out 3 dashes. So what this will do is first go over our outer loop. It will then go over our inner loop. And once it's gone over the inner loop, we'll then print out 3 dashes. So when I press return here, you can see that we separate each outer loop. So all we're doing here is using for loop functionality inside of the main body of another for loop. So hopefully not too difficult to grasp. Let's now do the same with a while loop. So we'll first of all set 2 variables. We'll have A equals 1, and we'll also put B equals 1. And all we're going to do in this one is do some simple maths. So we're going to start with while A is less than or equal to 3. I can then put a colon. Now the first thing I'm going to do here is actually print out this is outer loop number. I can then put curly braces. We'll use the dot format method, and inside the curly braces we want to store whatever is stored in A. So on the first iteration it will store 1, on the second iteration it will store 2, and so on. Now also inside the main body of this while loop, I'm going to add another while loop. So I'm going to put while B is less than or equal to 5. I can then put a colon. When I press return, I'm now going to be writing the statement I want to execute every time the nested while loop is iterated over. So here I'm going to do a simple calculation, which is a times b, and we're going to store this in the variable named c. After this has been calculated and stored the result in c, I'm going to print in a loop and then a set of curly braces, calculates curly braces times curly braces equals curly braces. And we're going to populate these curly braces with the dot format method, and we're going to first of all put b, because we want to see what the inner loop number is. I'm then going to put a, and then b, which will be the a times b, and then the fourth element will be c, which is the result of a times b. Now hopefully you remember we don't want to run into an infinite loop, so in this nested while loop, after the print statement, I'm going to increment b by 1, so I'm going to put b plus equals 1, and then when I press return, I'm going to go back one indentation for our first while loop, and then I'm going to increment a by 1. So I can put a plus equals 1. Now there's also one other thing I'll need to do here, because at this point, b is going to contain 5. So I need to reset b to be 1 in order for the calculations to work appropriately. To then separate our code so it's easier to read, I'm just going to print out 3 dashes. Now when we run this code, you can see that we first of all get this is outer loop number 1. And that's because A initially stores 1, and we first of all print out that first sentence. We then go into the nested while loop, and this while loop is iterated over until we break out of it. So you can see we have inner loop 1 calculates 1 times 1, then inner loop 2 calculates 1 times 2, and this is because b is being incremented by 1 each time, and you can see the second number in the calculation is being incremented each time, and we get the respective result stored in c. Once we've broken out of the nested while loop when b is no longer less than or equal to 5, we go back to our first outer while loop, and a then increments to 2. So we have this is outer loop number 2 because this print statement is then executed again. We then have inner loop 1, inner loop 2, inner loop 3, and so on. But this time, a stores 2, so we're doing 2 times, and then we have 2 times 1, 2 times 2, 2 times 3, and so on. Finally, once we break out the nested while loop, we then go back to the first while loop, a is incremented to 3, b is reset to 1, and the calculation starts again. So hopefully you can see here, when we nest a loop inside another loop, the outer loop takes the first item in the iteration. It then executes the nested loop until we break out of that loop. Once we do, we go back to the outer loop, take the next item in the sequence, and then the nested loop is iterated over in its entirety until we break out of that loop. We then go back to the outer loop, and the pattern continues. So practice giving this a go. Maybe create your own calculations, maybe create your own sentences, maybe do a combination of both to make sure you understand how nested loops operate. You can include while loops and then nested for loops. You could have a for loop with a nested while loop. Mix and match and see if you can predict the output before you run the code.